Now, with the rainy season at its peak, environmentalists are predicting an ocean surge which may result in more cases of flooding in states across the country. Experts are recommending the introduction of legal and policy frameworks by the federal government to ensure that flooding is controlled and managed in Nigeria. Our rights correspondent Deborah Ojedele filed this report.
Flooding, often described as the second most recurrent hazard affecting most countries after the epidemics. It results in the loss of lives and properties among residents where it occurs, and Nigeria is no exception. In Nigeria, the situation is said to have resulted from failures of water control structures such as dams, shore protection, sand filling, and land reclamation. However, there is a growing worldwide movement to tackle climate change and decarbonize our ecosystem.
The people at great risk, naturally, are the people along the Nigeria's 850-something kilometer coastline. So you have coastal inundation, you have the polar ice melting. Remember, global average increase in global temperature, right? So it's melting the ice, and this is melting and now pouring into the sea and ocean. So the thing, the water body is, it's one, right? It's one. So streams, rivers flow into these, and all of those is connecting. So when you have that, you have accelerated sea level rise, and you have coastal inundation. So a lot of communities, some communities have been displaced or have been displaced in the Niger Delta as we speak, and nobody is even talking about them.
If you have regions that you have rising ocean levels combined with rainfall, and you realize that these people are already living beside the wetlands, their place is wet already, and this rain comes on top of it and it's rising. I mean, you don't need a scientist to tell you what the consequences are. Naturally, there are places. If you come to the Sahel region, where you have the Yobe State, all that, when the flood comes, it's a momentary event. It just happens and it goes. There are places the flood comes for months. The water is still there because the environment has lost that capacity to absorb. Some of the flooding that comes through natural means, for instance, if there is a high level of rainfall, I don't know what you're going to do to stop rain from falling. But as human beings, you should know that it's very important to plant trees. See what I mean? You plant trees, and those who design estates where they live should make sure that the drainage system is well constructed.
The general annual flood outlook for 2022, predicted by the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, shows that 233 local government areas in 32 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory fall within the highly probable flood risk areas, while 212 local government areas in 36 states of the Federation and the FCT fall within the moderately probable flood risk areas.
There is supposed to be flood emergency management plan. What that means is very simple. Since flood is like an annual event that we are having, and whenever flood occurs, there are multiple individuals that are supposed to come and play a part. Media, they are supposed to come, at least educate this is happening. Projections have been made. We are going to likely have this in Abuja in the next 48 hours. Media, they have a role to play. Individuals, we have a role to play. There are certain actions we are supposed to take when the flood is coming. The government, there are actions that they are supposed to take. Non-governmental organizations, there are actions that they are supposed to take. For instance, development partners, there are actions they are supposed to take. So in emergency response plan, you try to identify the responsibilities and obligations of individuals, and you now come up with a sort of allocation of responsibilities so that you are now putting up a challenge to the various stakeholders.
Just as the rest of the world continues to battle the issue of floods and rising seas yearly, it is obvious that flooding disasters need to be factored into the country's economic outlook and development.
All right, to discuss this global phenomenon and how it is affecting Nigeria, we're now being joined by Air Commodore Kenneth Iyamu, author and climate change expert. Thanks so very much, General, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, we can't deny the fact of the climatological changes taking place in the world. but it's Nigeria's preparedness. The coastal people, beginning from Lagdo Dam in Cameroon. In September, they are going to release their waters. We've not gotten any warning from the Ministry of Water Resources. We've not talked, NEMA has not talked about evacuation plans and the rest. And you've crisscrossed all those areas of human endeavors and the rest. Tell us, what kind of preparedness do we have now?
Well, thank you very much. You see, flooding is just a symptom of the whole problem, the general problem. Now, the general problem is climate change and global warming. What these two, let's put them in perspective. For global warming, we are talking of rise in Earth's average temperature that leads to monumental change in weather patterns. So, Lagdo Dam is a yearly thing. They will always release water. And here we have 333 dams in the pseudo-Sahelian region that are supposed to take this water. Now, what is happening now is that the rains are becoming so vicious. That is why the World Weather Attribution says that, look, this phenomenon we are experiencing now started in 2011, started coming. You can see in 2011 what happened.
It got here in 2012.
It got here in 2012. Now, by 2011, you have 2012 was so devastating. You have almost 3,750 businesses, informal businesses.
Well, it's estimated that about 1.9 billion naira was lost.
4 billion US dollars was.
About 1.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it depends on the data.
Coming now, it's about preparation now. That's what we're going to. Now, it is climate change. We have to solve the problem of climate change. Otherwise, every year is going to be coming. Now, what are we having? We are having more severe rainfall now over a long period of time, or very short one over a short period of time, or the one from the ice melting coming as sea level rise. The danger is the one from the sea level rise. It's so difficult to take it out back into the sea. That is where you need investment. That is where you need investment in machinery that will help you take it from the streets or wherever back into the sea.
So coastal areas like Lagos State, the Niger Delta, even looking at communities along the Gongola Basin and the Benue troughs, where you have the River Gongola, the River Benue to the River Niger, they are in critical situation. They can just go under.
No. You see, it's been happening and it's been managed. It's been managed. What you now have to do is that every year, before we get to this stage, let the people, the stakeholders, the individuals in that path, we all have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to be able to mainstream, to control climate change.
Well, definitely, we all have our individual roles, but let's not forget at the end of the day, there is still a government in charge of the country that can actually help people direct, the activities and how it should go. Well, according to the United Nations, it says $16.9 billion was actually lost in 2012 when we had that very disastrous flooding in the country. But at the end of the day, I want us to stick with the United Nations. Well, amongst the 17 SDGs that have been outlined, that will help in the attaining of human development by 2030, more than half of them are being threatened by flooding. Do you think, as a nation, we're doing enough, really, in your honest opinion, as an expert in this field, are we doing enough to ensure that these disasters are not worse than what we have seen in the past, looking forward now? Yes.
If you look at it, to be able to understand it, you first of all look at what are the various agencies doing. Now, flooding in the first place, when it comes, it washes away arable land. And you are threatened with food security, you are threatened with environmental security, you are threatened with health security, which at the end of the day, all of them become national security. What you are going to do is enlightenment and desitting the 323 dams. At the end of the day, they are going to converge in the lowest point, which is Lokoja. So, the flooding in the general entirety is not bad. They bring alluvial soil, which increases your farming.
For
soil
that fertility.
Soil fertility. So what we are going to do is that we have to go back to climate change and global warming. If we don't solve it, because the amount of rain, like the World Weather Attribution told you that, look, this phenomenon that we're experiencing happen once in every 40 years, but it's been reduced to one every 20 years.
And we have the Lagbo Dam occasion, not once in 30 years. In the last 30 years, the federal government of, the Nigerian government has not been able to put up a mitigating indices, to tackle that Lagbo Dam flooding.
You see, you cannot control what the dam is going to release.
But you just said we have over 300 dams, which is a fact.
Yes.
Can't some of these dams take the water?
Let me tell you. You see, like this particular year, the rain that was supposed to fall in 1 year fell in 2 days. So it's not a matter of dam or whether you have any control. There's no amount of control that you are going to have that will go to check this particular thing. It's for you to look, carbon emission must be reduced. That's our individual responsibility. Your carbon footprint must be reduced. As we move towards COP27, we must solve the problem of global warming. We must solve the problem because Nigeria contributes less than 1% of carbon emission. I mean, the Pacific Islander, which shares the similar problem like Nigeria, they have declared a climate emergency. The US is going to declare climate emergency. It's not about where you are. It's just about the amount of water we are getting. It's far more than what anybody is prepared for. So it is a global problem, and we must take it about in that particular. Take for example South Africa. The flood that they had was a very serious flood.
Yes.
Like I said before, 1 year rain fell
in 48 hours.
In 48 hours. In 48 hours. What happened? They lost about 400 people.
Almost 400,
12,000 houses were destroyed, and 400,000 people were displaced. So if you also see, if you go to Maseran in India, for the first time in quite a number of years, they have the highest inches of rainfall, 39.9.
At the end of the day, climate change is a thing, and it's an issue.
Yes.
It must take all hands to be on deck to be able to defeat it, at least even manage it and its outcomes, so that way the impacts are limited. We would have to say thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program to talk about the only natural disaster that some would say we have here in Nigeria.
Yeah, thanks very much. Commodore Kenneth Iyamu is an author and an environmentalist.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.